Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Rich. All right, welcome to Super Fun Sunday. I haven't done one of these in a while. I'm excited. So anyway, I had Rizzo on the brain. Rizzo. Eduardo Rizzo. Okay, so this is what I'm going to say about Rizzo. I think that he, in some ways, is, what would you call it? Underrated. That's what people always love to say. So and so is underrated. Rizzo is, I think, professionally respected, but I think I don't hear tons of people actually talking about like his draftsmanship and whatnot. This is a Dave Johnson cover. For whatever reason, Rizzo rarely does his own covers. I don't understand that long game, but anyway, that's kind of my own sort of personal thought process on it. I think that especially someone like Rizzo who's done so many interiors, I would love to see him do his own covers, but it is what it is. Dave Johnson's an excellent artist. So anyway, all right, what's Super Fun Sunday gonna be? It's gonna be super fun. All right, we haven't done one of these in a while. I haven't done one of these in a while. So the reason that I picked Eduardo Rizzo as a comeback for Super Fun Sunday is Rizzo's a guy that okay. So I worked for Wildstorm, but Wildstorm was purchased by DC Comics. So at that point, DC just about every week would send us comps, or maybe once a month we would get comps. I don't even remember how it worked now, to be honest. I guess they would just come in and then they would open them and give them to us. So I would get copies of just about every single book that DC published, hardcovers, the whole thing. So I always saved 100 bullets. I never read the series. I never really looked at it, but I always kept them, and I have the singles and the trades of it. And once every couple of years, I would kind of circle back to Rizzo's work, and I always thought that his stuff is really cool to learn from, could be for people. And so two of the main questions that I always get, let's look at a Rizzo page. I'm sick of looking at this cover. Like, all right, let's do this. We're going to go to this page. The nice thing about Rizzo stuff is it hits two questions that I get asked a lot in terms of how to do things. One is how to put shadows on our work or my work, meaning the person that's asking. I don't know how to put shadows. I don't know how to put black on my pages. The other is people have trouble picking shots. They don't know how to draw a panel in a page and make it look like it has some depth and it's cool, and you can move the quote unquote camera around, meaning just the perspective of the shot that you're drawing. And Rizzo Rizzo really hits that, and I would highly recommend, no matter what style that you draw on, if either of those two things seem to be an issue for you, he's a really good guy to look at. And so I peeked at this last night. This first issue is fantastic, and in fact, I would say this: if you're a fan of someone like Chris Bacalo, and Bacalo is a little hard for you to learn from, this in a weird way has Bacalo isms to it and other things too. But all you would really need to do is ramp up some of the detail and sort of wackiness of the drawings, and it's real similar in points. You'll see what I mean as we move along. But anyway, let's get to this. I'm going to go into full screen mode. I kind of want to go in order, but I don't know. Let's see. So this is the first page. We'll just go in order. I don't need to necessarily have a black screen. So the opening page, we're just going to look at the first issue. I've got to actually get to work. I'm finishing a book today, Crystal Planet, that I penciled and inked. And tomorrow afternoon or early evening, I will be back on Blasterkid. So that is very exciting for me. All right, so we've got a space station, and who knows where. Probably says in the book, but I don't read comics. I just look at the pretty pictures. I should read them. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. You tell me. All right. It looks cool. This is Trish Mulville colors, I believe. She's excellent. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm nearly sure that's the colorist, Mulvihill. I think on 100 Bullets it was Grant Goliash, who is Tim Bradstreet's colorist, although he rarely gets credited on Tim's stuff. But anyway, so this is really, really cool shot. I actually love the colors on this. In fact, the other thing I was thinking, what's nice about Rizzo's stuff is you can actually remove the color generally quite easily. We'll do it on some other pieces. This isn't like such a, oh my god, kind of page that you would need it. But really, there's no true lighting on this page because the huge shadow that's being cast on him is not consistent with anything else in the room. So this is what I call fudgery. Well, I just coined that phrase over the weekend. No, but I call it like bullshit lighting. It conveniently makes things look dramatic for you. But if there was this strong of a light source coming from this direction, this pillow would be casting a shadow on the wall, as would some of this technology and stuff like this. So this is just, it's a design element, really, is what it is. It's just, it frames this guy. The light, the shadow back here is nice, but I mean, this cast shadow right here makes no sense based on how he lit everything else in this room, but it looks cool. So anyway, sometimes the problem is if you actually try to keep this lighting consistent throughout the whole piece, it might make it more muddled. So sometimes you really just want to focus on what the sort of task at hand is. Okay, cool. Is it gonna go in order? If it goes in order, we can go in full screen mode. I really like this type of comic book, meaning that it's apocalyptic and sparse. It's kind of my thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think it kind of comes from my fandom of Stanley Kubrick. I like things like The Shining and just where it's kind of like you on an adventure sort of thing. This book kind of had a little bit of that vibe to me. I think there's something fun as a reader where you can kind of put yourself into the thing. And funny is it actually, Abra has a little bit of this vibe. If you know the manga Abra sort of starts off on this kind of apocalyptic planet. Or is it Biomega? Maybe it's Biomega. One of them. I think all of his books are kind of like that. I'm down. And Blasterkid, really, in a weird way, is kind of like that, too, where it's a single character that goes on an adventure, but really you could kind of put yourself in the character's position and sort of go on the adventure yourself. I like that. And then, that might actually come from playing video games as a kid, things like that. Dungeons and Dragons. This is a nice shot. But yeah, you can see that he uses very simple shapes. Carlos Deanda was an office mate of mine, and Carlos draws rock solid. He is just like structurally bulletproof with his construction of things. And Carlos would I think agree that Rizzo is a really good artist to look at if you're trying to ground your art and things. And like on a shot like this, just as a for instance, something that I would do personally, but I mean, Rizzo's a much better pencil. I mean, I would have had, because the light source seems to be coming from here, I would have actually pulled shadows probably behind him like this. And then even on something like this, I'm always tempted to put more sort of shadows behind things. And I mean, you could even do it here. So it's really just comes down to your own aesthetic and what you're into. I tend to like dramatic things and dark things. So if you don't like that, you may not want to put as many shadows. So these men, it was interesting because I was trying to figure out, they kind of look like ape men to me, but maybe they're like some sort of a hybrid. Again, I haven't read the comics, so maybe it's some sort of thematic thing where man and primitive man have somehow merged, or we're regressing back to ape men, or maybe they're just weird looking guys. I don't even know. This is really nice. 100 Bullets is great. It was interesting because, like I said, I would circle back to 100 Bullets every few years, and I always would go like, man, there's a lot of good stuff that you could learn from this guy, like a lot of interesting ideas and stuff like that. And even just the organic nature of this shot. I think this is a very, very beautiful panel right here with him peeking through the blinds, and just the way that he bent it, and this kind of stuff. You can get this fix from people like Frank Miller. It's easy to compare this guy to Mignola, and I think that there are some Mignola-esque things, but I get a little tiny bit more of a Frank. Well, this is what I was talking about. Doesn't this look like a Bacalo page? It's really, really cool looking. Man, just a beautiful little shot. I will say this though, that some of the perspective in this is drifting. It's still very, very nicely done. The eye level and stuff like that stays fairly consistent, but some of the objects, like this is kind of off. These feel off to me. I'm not going to sit and work it out right now, but eye level is, I think what it is eye level sits right. Let me grab a brighter color so you can see it. And the funny thing is I'm doing a new series on Patreon. I would highly recommend it for people, and it's about creative drawing and really getting good at just being able to draw out of your head. But just by default, I've had to learn what I would consider real things, because if you do enough bad drawings, ultimately you have to figure out what is the problem. And so I think it's just this feels weird to me, and then this feels weird to me. It just doesn't feel like it's sitting really at the eye level. And if you started creating vanishing points for this stuff, it just feels off a little bit. Like he's almost got everything. Like, and I've talked about this in other videos on Patreon. In fact, some artists will use 2 horizon lines. It's like generally speaking, a horizon line would be something like that. But I've seen many times when I'm explaining people's art to people, like someone will go, I'm a big fan of like so-and-so. So I have to dissect so-and-so's art and try to explain to them what they're seeing. But it's not uncommon to have a horizon line like this, and then the artist will have another object that really sits at another horizon line. So you, in a weird way, can have about that much wiggle room of a horizon line. It sounds weird because it's nothing that you would see in real life, but art isn't real life, so use that information however you want. But I've definitely seen this many times in drawings and comic books, and you don't really notice it either, is the funny thing. So beautiful 2-page spread though. I would love to own an original of something like this. I think it's just fantastic, but this building bugs me. These two next to each other actually both do, but that's just me. Not a big fan of the colors on this section. It's a little too much for my personal taste. It's still very nicely done, but you don't like it either, Kitty? Okay. I think what it is it's the airbrush quality of it. It's not so much the color choices. It's reminding me of, was it not Dark Knight Returns, but when Frank Miller went back to Dark Knight, some of the stuff that Lynn Varley was doing was just a little too much. But again, that's a personal taste. I try not to inject too much of my own prejudices in Super Fun Sunday, but I'll just be honest. Yeah, it reminds me, you know what it looks like is like there's the really fruity gradations that you have in Photoshop where it's like you can do like a rainbow grad. It kind of reminds me of that look. But, it definitely stands out versus the cold, dark world of everything else. So. The dog is funny. This is cool. I like this. Just enough detail to sort of place you in a setting. He's got some guns. They're playing cards. This has got a hookah and sushi, in fact. So, that actually is a tiny bit of maybe a potential storytelling beat. This is cool. I like this shot a lot. We won't do it on this page, but one of the next pages that we look at, let's do this. We'll do this one in black and white. What the heck? So first things first, you can see there's quite a bit of text on this page. So he was smart by leaving quite a bit of negative space here to make sure that the word balloons could fit in. Kelsey, from Kelsey and Rich, which I'll have a link to Kelsey's channel in the description box. Kelsey and I are really trying to up our game on all fronts right now. We've had a break and we're coming back strong. But anyway, he actually, when he lays out his pages, will sort of leave room for the dialogue. I didn't do it on the first issue of Crystal Planet, but I was mindful of how much text was in the piece. But if you're laying something out in something like Clip Studio, even if you're not going to letter it yourself, it's not a bad idea to, one, take into account how much word things, how much text there's going to be. You can also Shoot, I'm trying to remember what he did. There was something else that he did. I'll find out and I can let you know. But the other thing is you really have to be careful. This is something that for whatever reason, I mean, it's obvious when you say it, but if you're drawing pages, you know, you've got multiple characters in a scene. I had an office scene that I had to draw on Crystal Planet, which had 3 characters in an office, and it was a lot of panels, like 7 or 8 panels. So it's like you're dealing with 3 people again and again and again. But the thing is they didn't always talk in order, and so the thing is I started going through shots. Let me grab a color. I have to get out of full screen mode. I'll just give you an example. What I mean though is okay, so if this is your page and you've got girl, we'll call it man, and boss, and they're in an office. The thing is if man talks first in this panel, but then this guy talks, and the order of the word balloons goes a certain way, you have to be real careful that if in another panel you can't, well, you have 2 choices. If someone talks out of order of the order of this, you're going to be all of a sudden having word balloons having to come over here, and then it comes back over here and over here, because the way that you chose to set up the characters, it's a slippery slope. So you just want to make sure that the order of your characters through a scene can accommodate the dialogue. I also had a scene where 2 people were sitting on a couch, and I had to I had to deal with that too, because there was a point where something happens, and it was like, it would have looked cooler for my drawing to be the way that I wanted it, meaning that like girl was here, guy was here. But in one of the panels, it really, or man, we'll call it, so it's not GG. But yeah, in like one of the other panels, it's like, it really actually would have been better to have the man here and the girl here because of the dialogue crap. And she's like, double crap. So anyway, definitely want to pay attention to that stuff when you're laying out your pages. And this dialogue is what's going to get you there. Sorry, let's go back into full screen mode. I like stuff like this, so I'm a big Joe Madureira fan. I haven't looked at his stuff in a few years, but Joe is awesome. I think the last time I looked at Joe was I did a video for Patreon. What was it? Battle Chasers, maybe? Maybe not. Maybe it was I don't even remember. Anyway, Joe, I always say is silhouette guy. Very, very frequently in Joe's work, you will actually, well, the Marvel stuff not as much, but definitely on Battle Chasers, you would sometimes get a silhouette on almost every single page. Quite a few, we'll say. Enough that it was noticeable to me. I think it's a really effective tool. I actually think that it looks cool. It gives the reader a moment to breathe and kind of soak in the coolness of everything. And this potentially could save you some time, but overall, why I like it the most is it looks good. This looks really good, and then this guy completely blacked out. I don't know if he's sniffing glue or what he's got here, and then just a little indication of his like probably found underwear with tiger stripes. It's just kind of funny. So yeah, it's cool. This is really nice. Again, nice, beautiful silhouetted panel. You know, it's interesting. I wonder if Rizzo did kind of get into Bacalo and Madureira. It could just be incidental. A lot of times this stuff is. It's like you do draw certain things. It's just people, you can kind of compare it to other stuff. Just depends on what you sort of discovered first or what you're a fan of, and chronologically, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because the artist drew something similar that there was actually a sort of connection. Yeah, so this is some sort of drug or something that they have. This is cool. This reminded me a little bit of Ronin when I saw the this, I don't know, I call it kind of chicken scratch rendering. It looks a little hairy to me. But Ronin is very, very good. It was one of those things that when I originally got it, got it as like the comic books, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and I would go back to it every few years and kind of peek at it and stuff like that. When I got the artist edition, that's when I really kind of, it sort of sunk in of how cool it is. It's different though, but it's very neat looking. Frank Miller is great, man. He's so good. This is cool. Nice simple car. But again, my point of showing Rizzo again is the fact that things are simple. These are nice, just very palatable things. If you can draw stuff like this solid, you're on your way. Because in theory, Rizzo could, add a lot more detail if he wanted to. It's not like that. Like if the light was coming from here and this was all shadow, and then he wanted to render the shit out of things. I mean, it's like you need this to be able to get there. When you can understand this, the other stuff is not very hard. This takes effort, but this is the first 2 years of you drawing. You'll really dial in your eye, that's for sure. I'll tell you that right now. If you draw pages and just go for it. It's funny because I'm actually going to put sort of a disclaimer on my Patreon moving forward next month. I'm going to tell people my focus is on creative drawing. That means drawing out of your head. Traditional drawing education, I think, should be a part of your process. But generally speaking, what I'm trying to get people to do is have the balls, or whatever you have, to draw. Sit down and draw out of your head. Do it. Flex those muscles. It'll scare the shit out of you, because it's going to show you really fast what you know and you don't know. And then you can learn the real stuff with it. You'll never be afraid to attempt something that you don't know how to draw, quote unquote, because it's a lie. It's a lie that you tell yourself. I'm here to tell you that I've been to the other side. It's where I'm going to exist. Free your mind and the rest will follow. This is great. I like this page a lot. These guys are so weird looking. This is nice. This is a very interesting transition. Very, very rarely would I consider turning a guy this direction. He did keep the light consistent though. That's interesting. Yeah. That's really neat. I mean, because it works. It pulls you this way and this way. It's something I wouldn't consider. This is nice. And then that. Really, really nice flow on this page. Good flow. Good flow. This is very Sin City. That's awesome. But yeah, so this is Spaceman. This, what's funny is when Spaceman came out, I kind of, it should have been something that I liked more, but it's kind of missed the mark a tiny bit for me at the time. I really like it now. I'm gonna read it, funny enough. I'm curious to read the story because it looks pretty neat. It's 9 issues, so I'm gonna go grab my trade. I have a hardcover of it in the garage. I'm gonna grab it today and bring it in. Give it a read. It'll be good. It'll be the first comic that I've read in I don't even know how long. I can't even remember. That's how long it's been. I've been that busy. I'm trying to think. As I was talking about this on Patreon with Steven yesterday, and I said you'd be surprised how little I look at art or read comics when I'm not on YouTube. I'm trying to think. I think the last book that I started to read was Blam, B-L-A-M-E, exclamation point. It was one of those books. It was either Abra, Biomega, or Blam. So that was about less than a year ago, but getting close to a year ago. Oh, it's cool. It's really nice. Blam was perfect because that artist, we're definitely on the same wavelength, whatever you want to call it. He's like a brother from another mother. We'll be fast friends. I want to meet that guy someday. We'll have a lot. We'll have some fun. We'll talk about apocalyptic worlds and all kinds of weird stuff. It's funny too. Is I wonder I use the 100 Bullets as an example of a book that I never thought that I would want to draw. but I appreciate the effort that it went into it. But in terms of like my natural aesthetics and strengths and stuff like that, 100 Bullets would be a nightmare because it's basically real people in like the barrio and mobsters and people in nightclubs and stuff like that. And it's just like, looks great. It's fun stuff, like fun content, you know, to look at. But man, not my forte in terms of drawing, you know. It's interesting, and I'll end the video on this. I think that was the last page. Yeah, is Mike Mignola always talks about that. Like, as a fan, we all go like, oh man, Mike Mignola would draw the most kick-ass like Batman, or he'd be like a great Batman artist. Apparently, from what Mike says, is he really doesn't like drawing Batman, and I don't know if it was that he doesn't think he's good at it or something like that, but it's interesting how our perception of Mike and what would be perfect for him, and then his own sort of thing is so different. I think that's interesting, but yeah. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed Rizzo and got a few takeaways. Definitely check out Patreon. This is for sure the last month that I'm doing the dollar tier. It's going to go up to $3 a month, and then the month after that it's going to $5. So these are the last 2 months that you're going to be able to get for the budget price. I've been on Patreon for 2 years. It's been $1. I figure at this point, if you haven't gotten in, you know, you're probably never going to check it out anyway. So there's over 700 videos. When I raise the amount, I am actually going to focus the content. So there will be a weekly inking video. There will be 2 drawing videos a week. We'll do book reviews, and then also the Journey of 1,000 Miles stuff, which kind of talks about sort of the psychology of drawing and the challenges that you face. The people really enjoy those. It's a YouTube black hole. They don't do well on YouTube, and they only appeal to such a small amount of people that they weighted my channel down. But there's hundreds of them, probably 200. So anyway, all right, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a super fun Sunday. I'm gonna get my ass to work. All right, later.